What's up, guys? It's your boy Chrysalis here, and today is going to be episode 3 of Chrysalis's Criterions, where I pick a Criterion collection from my Criterion collection, and I tell you what I think of the movie as well as the overall packaging of said movie. And for this video, I'm going to be covering, if you got to catch the last video, I'm going to be covering Guillermo Del Toro's The Shape of Water. I remember I said at some point that I was going to wait until October to start covering Guillermo Del Toro's Criterions, since there's 4 of them in my collection. 4 of them? Think about 4 or 5 of them. I mean, there's eventually going to be one more, but that's not until late October. But I really just was in the mood to watch The Shape of Water after I watched Fandom Thread, and yeah, here we are. On the subject of Paul Thomas Anderson as it pertains to the fan thread, I'm still going to be working on the Paul Thomas Anderson filmography overview. I'm just not going to do that until, of course, after I've watched one battle after another. Assuming that I end up enjoying it, I will be watching it a second time, hopefully in theaters. But in the meantime, you'll get the usual, me talking about Guillermo Del Toro's The Shape of Water, and other movies as well. If you're very interested in my first 2 episodes of this series, as well as my episode 0 of the series with my One Car Why collection, there will be a playlist on the channel which I will link in the description, where you can also watch me pretend to be in the Criterion closet. Anyhow, with that out of the way, this is The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water is the 2017 release from visionary dark fantasy director Guillermo Del Toro, whose works include his version of Pinocchio that's on Netflix, The Devil's Backbone. He also did Pan's Labyrinth, Kronos. He was also responsible for 2 Hellboy movies, and specifically Blade 2. Specifically with The Shape of Water, this was a movie that marked a sort of return to smaller projects as opposed to like big budget Warner Brothers-esque movies like the Hellboy series, the Blade movie, and Pacific Rim. As such, movies like that had a lot of big name cast members and higher budgets, whereas this film right here costed only $20 million to make. $14 million if he decided to just do the whole movie black and white, but he decided against that. Which, as I will explain later in the video, ended up working out for the better, although I think there is a black and white sequence in the film though. And if you're not familiar with this movie, it's a love story between a woman and her amphibian man. Love is love, am I right, fellas and ladies and other genders, etc.? In particular, what the 2 of them have in common that kind of facilitates a shared bond is that neither of them speak the conventional language that surrounds them. Sally Hawkins' character Eliza being mute from birth, surrounded by a lot of characters that aren't mute and they just talk regular English, and as well as, in a lot of ways, since their language is a part of their culture, have like a specific way on how they view the world. So this is only semi-related, but if you're looking for a movie about how language is a part of someone's culture, and once you understand someone's language, you understand how they view the world and time and everything else, you absolutely need to watch Arrival. That's it. That's my that's my plug right there. Just watch Arrival in terms of this theme in particular. Whereas our amphibian man here, played by masterful monster character player, whatever you want to call him, Doug Jones, was just a river god living in South America before the life that he knew was stripped from him, and then he was placed in a lab. So in a way, there ends up being not just camaraderie between the 2 of them, but also romance between the 2 of them, since both of their chances to thrive or be a part of one culture have been stripped away from them. Where the two are polar opposites, I feel, is that Eliza's just invisible and not really anybody. Just someone that does janitorial duties at said lab or whatever, and not really having any voice of her own. But all eyes are on the amphibian man because he's big, he's tall, they don't understand him, and he's an amphibian man. They want to extract anything useful out of him and then just toss him aside because that's kind of what the right-wing fascist culture of the 1960s had in store for everybody. I bring this up in particular because it's a story about two characters who are looking for someone or something, but they don't really have a idea of what it looks like. There's no form, it's just fluid, if you will. Just ebbs and flows until one day it just finally takes shape. And a lot of the themes here are just so meticulously enhanced thanks to Guillermo Del Toro as well as the cast and crew, of course. And by the way, the cast for this movie is pretty top-notch in my opinion. Of course you have Sally Hawkins as Eliza and Doug Jones as the Amphibian Man, but the movie also has Richard Jenkins, Michael Shannon, Michael Stuhlbarg, and randomly, Octavia Spencer. And I absolutely love Octavia Spencer as Zelda, as in a lot of ways she's just Eliza's like ride or die in terms of friendship. And I guess within the context of the themes about outsiders in this culture that's omnipresent in the 1960s, Eliza's friend being a black woman, one of the most ostracized demographics of this time period, as well as Eliza's roommate being a gay man, it just feels so fitting that in addition to Doug Jones's Amphibian Man, that these two characters in particular are just so vital to, like, imperative and important to Eliza's character as a whole, as well as just whenever it comes time to free the Amphibian Man from its prison and eventually take the Amphibian Man back to the sea. And I will say a lot of Octavia Spencer's just quintessential acting and just overall humor and how she carries herself in a lot of other movies just appears in this movie. I really love the scene where after Sally Hawkins and Doug Jones, do the following day, Octavia's like just so curious about why Eliza's just so happy and just wants to know what happened, and finally Eliza spills the beans and they're like, but how? Does he have one? And Zelda, Octavia's character, goes, Lord, don't ever trust a man, no matter how flat he looks down there. But The Shape of Water is a movie that I feel like I could go on and on talking about, like Alexander Desplat's gorgeous, immaculately made musical score with this film. Dan Lotson's cinematography is just so well done, especially given how the camera always feels like it's in motion, as it's like kind of just ebbing and flowing with the waves of our water-esque movie. That's why it's called The Shape of Water. And they did just such a damn good job transforming Doug Jones into the Amphibian Man. The one thing I will always, always, always appreciate about Guillermo Del Toro's movies is how he's just able to bring to life this grotesque image and just make it real in his films. Whether it's the Amphibian Man in this movie or the Fawn in Pan's Labyrinth, also played by Doug Jones, by the way. He just knows how to make it real, and he just knows who to pick in terms of helping him make it real. Also, fun fact, he actually self-financed the creation of the Amphibian Man. Everything from the sculpting of the Amphibian Man, and then the eventual like costume and makeup for him. Which also surprisingly didn't take very long from when I was watching one of the documentaries and this copy of the film, is that the whole thing only takes like a couple hours. You always hear about these transformations, whether it's Jim Carrey as the Grinch or Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok and Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, taking like an inhuman amount of hours to put together. But with this one, it just only takes like a couple hours for Doug Jones to just be put into the costume, the outfit, or whatever you want to call it, as the Amphibian Man. The Shape of Water is just an excellent movie, and if you have not watched it, or even if you've never really watched any of Guillermo Del Toro's movie, I would definitely say that this is a great place to start at. I also would recommend, of course, Pan's Labyrinth, which I will be covering in a future Criterions episode eventually. So as far as the packaging goes, there's oh, by the way, when I immediately saw this, I awed so much. This is the Blu-ray in 4K. When you get this, the 4K will be right here and the Blu-ray will be right here, but I got them mixed and mashed. Are they different shades? They are. The Blu-ray has like a little purple to it. That's cool. Hey, you open this and that's just so good. That is just so good. And I think right here is Eliza about to tell Michael Shannon's character to go fuck himself. And here is this super well written essay about the movie. Shout out to Carlos Aguilar, I believe his name is. Yeah, look at me remembering things. As well as some like artwork right here, acknowledgements about the remaster and who all was responsible for the movie and everything else, some shout outs and stuff, the usual. And I really like the bonus features quite a bit, even if when you're watching them like back to back to back to back, it really feels like that they're kind of repeating themselves at times. But I think my favorite bonus feature though was kind of a directors on directors type dealio, where it was Guillermo Del Toro talking with David Lowery about the making of The Shape of Water. If you're not familiar with David Lowery, he is the guy instrumental in the making of movies like Ghost Story and The Green Knight. Both movies that I definitely do recommend that you watch, especially The Green Knight. But it was just really cool just seeing like two creatives just kind of hashing it out about the creation of The Shape of Water, as well as just the creation of movies in general. More specifically about the structure of a parable. There's also a small 4-part documentary about the making of the movie that shines a light on how they were able to make, again, Doug Jones into the Amphibian Man. A lot of stuff about Alexander Desplat making the musical score for the film, just how damn good he is at his job. And there's also a lot about the production design and the overall color schemes and lighting as well. Lots of green, lots of blue in the movie. In a sense, kind of reflecting the overall color palette of our monster here. That is a lot of green, a good bit of blue. It also talks about how red is implemented at times to indicate passion, which is, you know, a common thing associated with the color red would be. There's also two little anatomy of the scenes. Between the two anatomy of the scenes though, the one I was the most interested in was about the prologue, where the movie starts with you're in this underwater cavern of sorts, and it just follows through this hallway, and you are in the living room where Eliza is sleeping, but it's all submerged and underwater, indicating that we are to believe that this is what she is dreaming about. It turns out that all that was something called wet and dry, or wet to dry. I can't remember the exact name for it, but I'll look it up later and put it in the captions. Where it was like a combination of a lot of fog, wires, lighting, and they just do a whole lot to make it look like that the whole set is like suspended in wires and just puppeteered and floating around and stuff. And then with CGI and all that, a lot of the wires and whatnot is removed in post, and now it's a lot of underwater stuff with like bubbles and whatnot. If there's one thing I do appreciate about Guillermo Del Toro is how he feels that while obviously practical effects reign supreme, you can also use CGI as well as kind of like a marriage between the two. Like, obviously, full CGI is, indicative of a loss of soul, but also full practical effects, like, that's really hard. So, otherwise, in the case of this movie, you just end up drowning all your actors and killing them. I completely forgot to cover the dance that is covered in the bonus features, just how they were able to make that happen. If you haven't watched the movie, there's a part of the movie where it's the only time you get Sally Hawkins using words because she is unable to vocalize to the amphibian man how much she loves him. So, in her own mind, she ends up kind of escaping to a fantasy set in the past where it's like this 1930s or 40s Hollywood dance number. And yeah, it's just a really well made just breakdown of like that entire scene, which lends to why I think if you really love The Shape of Water, you should get this version of The Shape of Water. Even if you already own a copy, there's a lot of good stuff in Criterion stuff. And I say that not sponsored at all. Criterion, please sponsor me. There's also a small interview from James Jean, who is responsible for the poster for this movie. He talks about how he used a lot of charcoal painting to be able to make one of the indicative posters just come to life. This is the guy that also did in the same year, 2017, posters for Blade Runner 2047, which he used a lot of digital effects for, and Darren Aronofsky's Mother. I need to look more into his posters because he did a damn good job with The Shape of Water. There was also a neat master class where it was Guillermo and everyone that was responsible for making the movie, the production designer, the cinematographer, and everyone else. And it's like people, just asking all these questions about the making of the film and everything. And how it kind of ends with Guillermo talking about how he was able to make it to award seasons and stuff, making the kind of movies he wants to make. And not about like these period pieces that take place in the 1800s revolving around Napoleon as like a adolescent or some shit. He was able to make a movie about a mute woman and an amphibian man falling in love in the 1960s. And as kind of a semi-related aside, again, this movie only costed like $20 million. For the price of a movie like, say, Red One, which cost $250 million, you could have made like 10 of these. And at least half of them would have also simultaneously broken even over. Also, fun fact, this movie made, I think it was $175 million in the box office, so yeah, this turned quite a pretty penny for, I think this was Searchlight, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Searchlight Pictures, shout out to the back of the cover that tells me right here. Yeah, I just absolutely love this movie. I loved it when I saw it back then. I loved it upon rewatch now, and I really am craving to watch it again at some point very soon. Because if there's one thing that I came to a realization of is when it comes to what movies can also be just tackling a subject such as romance, which, as I understand it, Guillermo did not tackle very much in his last few films up until this one. And you can just go head on into it and then just figure out how you want to present it and what it means to you as you go. In a way, that's kind of what art should be. You shouldn't only be making something that's super familiar to you, you know what it looks like, you know how you're gonna make it, and yeah, it comes out looking okay, but at the same time, it's like, what exactly did you learn doing it? Whereas with this, you just go into it and you just learn what it looks like, and the pieces end up falling where they may, and it ends up looking all the better for it. Which I guess simultaneously ends up going back to the themes of this film about what it is that you want being formless until one day it takes shape, and that is The Shape of Water. That actually came out great. Anyhow, if you own this copy of The Shape of Water, or any copy of The Shape of Water, or if you've watched The Shape of Water, what did you think of The Shape of Water? Is it one of your favorite Guillermo Del Toros? You think it's overrated? You hate it? Just let me know in the comments below. And while you're there, consider hitting like and subscribe, because I do intend on making more of these episodes for sure, and I'm not sure which one I'm going to do next, but I'm going to be very excited to do it. And before I go, and I am not sponsored to say this, but as of me recording this video, there is a 30% off sale going on in the Criterion collection website. And I think this discount also is being applied to Amazon as well, but don't hold me to that. So if you are looking to get this disc or other 4Ks like this one, definitely give that a look. I know it's not exactly cheap still, but I mean, you know, it's better than paying full price for sure. So that's just my little shout out to the Criterion collection, and yeah, that's about it. This is your boy Chrysalis here, signing off.